Lead without title.
A guide to influencing, inspiring, and building trust without a position of power. Chapter 1. The Myth of the Corner Office. There is a story most of us were told without words. It went like this. First, you earn the position, then you lead. First the title, then the trust. First the corner office, then the authority to speak. We absorbed this story in school when we waited for the teacher to tell us what mattered. We absorbed it at work when we held back our best ideas until someone with a badge gave us permission to share them. We absorbed it so deeply that most of us still carry it today. A quiet belief that leadership is something given, not something lived. This book is about dismantling that story. Not because titles don't exist, they do. Not because organizational structures are meaningless, they aren't. But because the most powerful force in any room, on any team, in any family or community, has never been the name on the door. It has always been the person willing to take responsibility before anyone asks them to. That person is a leader without a title. The janitor and the CEO. In 2003, a researcher studying organizational culture walked the floors of a mid-sized manufacturing company in Ohio. She was there to understand why this particular company had unusually low turnover, high morale, and a reputation for quality that its competitors couldn't match, despite paying average wages and offering no extraordinary perks. She interviewed the CEO. She interviewed department heads and project managers. She sat in on team meetings and strategy sessions. All of it was useful. None of it explained what she was looking for. Then, on her third day, she met a man named Raymond. Raymond had worked at the company for 22 years. His job title was maintenance supervisor. He swept floors, fixed broken equipment, and made sure the bathrooms were clean. On paper, he had no authority over anyone. But when the researcher watched Raymond move through the building, she noticed something strange. People stopped what they were doing to greet him, not out of obligation, but with genuine warmth. A floor manager asked his opinion on a logistics problem. A junior engineer came to him with a personal concern about a coworker. A VP stopped in the hallway to tell Raymond about a family event he'd attended over the weekend. She asked Raymond about it later. He thought for a moment, then said, "I don't know. I just try to see people. Most folks walk through a building and see tasks. I walk through and see people who have tasks." That single sentence contains more leadership philosophy than most MBA programs will teach you. Raymond had no title, no authority, no budget, no team, no formal power of any kind. And yet he was, without question, one of the most influential people in that organization. People trusted him. People followed his example. People were better, more patient, more careful, more human, simply because they had spent time around him. This is the central truth this book is built upon. Leadership is not a position. It is a practice. What leadership actually is. Before we go further, we need to clear some ground. The word leadership has been so overused, so stretched across so many contexts, that it has nearly lost its meaning. Leadership courses promise to turn you into a visionary. Leadership gurus ask you to find your why. Leadership books insist you need a morning routine, a personal mission statement, and 5 habits before breakfast. Most of this misses the point. At its core, leadership is simpler and harder than any of that. It is this. Leadership is the act of making the people around you more capable, more confident, and more connected to something worth doing, without requiring anything in return. Notice what is not in that definition. There is no mention of charisma, no requirement for extroversion, authority, or a LinkedIn following, no mention of giving speeches or running meetings or casting a compelling vision in a boardroom. Leadership, in its truest form, is relational. It happens in the small moments, the one-on-one conversation, the quiet acknowledgement, the moment you choose to listen instead of talk, The decision to take responsibility when it would be easier to look away. It is available to every person in every room, regardless of what the organizational chart says. The problem with waiting. Here is what happens when we believe that leadership requires a title. We wait. We wait to be promoted before we take initiative. We wait to be asked before we share what we know. We wait for someone to appoint us as a leader before we act like one. And while we wait, we quietly tell ourselves a story about why we aren't ready yet. Not enough experience. Not enough authority. Not my place. This waiting has a cost that most people never calculate. Every time you held back a good idea because you weren't sure it was your place to share it, that idea either died or someone else eventually had it. Every time you saw a problem and thought someone should fix this, and that someone wasn't you, the problem grew. Every time you had the capacity to lift someone up and you didn't, because you were still waiting for permission to be the kind of person who does that, something between you and them calcified. The waiting doesn't protect you, it diminishes you. And here is the quiet cruelty of it. The longer you wait for a title to give you permission to lead, the less prepared you are to lead when you finally get one. Because leadership is a muscle. It grows through use. And the people who become remarkable leaders, the ones who transform teams, companies, families, communities, they didn't start practicing the day they got promoted. They started years before, in small moments, in the spaces where no one was watching and no one would have blamed them for doing nothing. They started with the decision to matter to the people around them, before the title, before the stage, before any recognition at all. A different kind of power. There are two kinds of power in human organizations. The first is positional power. It flows from rank. It says, "Do this because I have authority over you." It is fast, efficient, and brittle. It works until the moment the person with the title leaves the room or leaves the company. And then it evaporates because it was never really about the person. It was about the seat they occupied. The second is relational power. It flows from trust. It says, "Follow me because you believe I care about where we're going and about you." It is slower to build, harder to measure, and nearly indestructible. When the person with relational power leaves a room, their influence lingers. When they change jobs, people follow. When they speak, people lean in, not because they have to, but because experience has taught them that what this person says is worth hearing. Positional power is borrowed. Relational power is earned. Every title in the world cannot buy you what Raymond the janitor had built over 22 years. And the good news, the genuinely liberating news, is that relational power is available to you right now, regardless of where you sit in any hierarchy. You don't need a promotion. You need a practice. What this book will ask of you. This is not a comfortable book. It will not tell you that leadership is easy or that influence is just a matter of technique. There are no scripts here, no formulas to memorize, no 5 steps to becoming influential by Friday. What this book offers is something harder and more valuable, a set of principles that, if lived consistently, will change the way people experience you and the way you experience yourself. We will talk about presence, the rare and powerful practice of being fully in the room with another person. We will explore the relationship between character and credibility. Why what you do when no one is watching determines everything about how people see you when they are. We will examine the discipline of serving others' growth, even when it costs you something. And we will look honestly at the fears that keep most people small. The fear of rejection, the fear of taking ownership, the fear of being seen before you feel ready. Each chapter will give you ideas to think with and practices to experiment with. Not because thinking is enough, it isn't, but because action without understanding is just noise. And understanding without action is just comfort. The goal is neither. The goal is a life in which the people around you are genuinely better for knowing you. A life in which your influence is felt not because of what you've been given, but because of who you've chosen to become. That is what it means to lead without a title. And it begins now in whatever room you're in, with whatever people are nearby.
The corner office was never the point. Chapter 2. The Art of Full Presence.
Think about the last time someone made you feel truly heard, not just listened to, not just nodded at. Truly heard. Where you felt, in your bones, that the person in front of you was completely with you. No glancing at the phone, no half-formed response waiting behind their eyes. No part of them already somewhere else. How long ago was that? For most people, the answer is uncomfortable, because moments of genuine presence have become so rare that when they happen, we remember them. We remember the person. We remember how they made us feel. And somewhere inside us, we decide, without consciously meaning to, that this person matters, that they are safe, that we would follow them somewhere. That is the power you are leaving on the table every single day. You are not as present as you think. Here is the truth no one wants to say out loud. Most of us are terrible listeners, not because we're bad people, not because we don't care, but because we have trained our minds, day after day, year after year, to be anywhere other than where we are. We check our phones 47 times a day. We carry on 3 conversations at once. We sit in meetings while composing emails in our heads. We look at the person talking to us and nod, while some other part of our brain is already planning dinner or rehearsing a defense or wondering if we turned off the stove. We have become masters of being physically present and mentally absent. And here is what that costs you. Not eventually, not in theory, but right now. Every time someone speaks to you and feels that you're only half there, they make a note. Not a conscious one, not a note they'll bring up in a meeting or write in a journal, but somewhere in the part of the brain that decides who to trust, who to open up to, who to follow into difficult territory. They make a note. This person is not really with me. And once that note is made, it is very hard to erase. The phone on the table. There is a study you need to hear about. Researchers placed 2 people together in a room and asked them to have a conversation. In some pairs, a phone sat on the table between them, face down, silent, belonging to neither of them. Just a phone. Present, but unused. In the other pairs, there was no phone at all. Afterward, participants rated the quality of the conversation, how connected they felt, how much they trusted the other person, how understood they believed they were. The pairs with no phone rated their conversations significantly higher. More trust, more connection, more understanding. A phone that no one touched, that no one looked at, that sat face down on a table between 2 people who were otherwise fully engaged. Its mere presence degraded the quality of human connection. Now think about what you are doing in your conversations every single day. Think about the last time someone was talking to you and you picked up your phone, just to check, just for a second. Think about the message that sent, not the words you said, the message your action sent. What you just said is less important than whatever might be on this screen. You didn't mean it. Of course you didn't. But they felt it. And they filed it away. Listening to respond versus listening to understand. There are 2 ways to listen. The first is the way most of us were never taught we were doing. You hear the words coming out of someone's mouth, and while they're still talking, your brain starts preparing, building a response, finding a counterpoint, crafting a story of your own that relates, or a solution, or a piece of advice, or a correction. By the time they finish speaking, you're ready. You open your mouth almost immediately. You contribute, you engage, and you missed everything that actually mattered. Because the most important thing a person says is rarely the first thing they say. It's the thing underneath, the thing they're circling, the thing they haven't quite found words for yet. It lives in the pauses, in the hesitations, in the slight change of tone when they get close to it. You will never find that thing if you are busy building your response. The second way to listen is uncomfortable at first. It requires you to enter a conversation without an agenda, without a prepared answer, without needing to be clever or helpful or right. It requires you to simply receive, to let someone's words land in you and trust that what you need to say will come after, not before. This is listening to understand, and it is shockingly rare. When you do it, really do it, people feel it immediately. They start to say more. They go deeper. They tell you things they haven't told anyone, not because you asked the right question, but because you created the kind of space where truth feels safe. That is not a small thing. That is everything. The leader in the room. Here is a scene you have probably witnessed. A team is having a difficult conversation. There is tension. Someone has said something that landed wrong. The room is tight with it. People are choosing their words carefully, and the words they're choosing are the safe ones. The ones that protect rather than reveal. And then one person leans forward. They don't speak yet. They just lean in. And they look at the person who seems most uncomfortable, and they say something simple. Maybe just, "It sounds like there's more there. What are you not saying?" The room shifts. Suddenly people are talking. Really talking. Things that needed to be said get said. The tension doesn't disappear, but it becomes productive. It becomes the tension of honest work rather than the tension of things unspoken. That person who leaned in, they didn't have the most senior title in the room. They may not have had any title at all. But for that moment, and for a long time after, they were the leader. All they did was pay attention. What full presence actually looks like. You might be wondering, what does this look like in practice? Is it just about putting the phone away? It starts there, but it goes deeper. Full presence is a decision you make before the conversation begins. It is the deliberate choice to give this person, this specific human being, right now, the full weight of your attention, not part of it. Not the part that's left over after everything else. All of it. It means making eye contact that doesn't feel aggressive, just warm. It means letting silences exist without rushing to fill them. It means asking the second question, not just, "How are you?" but, after they answer, "What's been the hardest part of that?" It means noticing what someone doesn't say as much as what they do. It means resisting the urge to make their story about you. And it means this, perhaps most of all. When someone is speaking to you, let their words actually reach you. Let them matter. Don't process from a distance. Don't manage the interaction. Be in it. Be moved by it if it's moving. Be troubled by it if it's troubling. Let the conversation do what conversations are supposed to do. Connect two human beings across the gap of their separate experiences. That vulnerability, the willingness to be actually affected by another person, is not weakness. It is the foundation of every meaningful relationship you will ever have. The practice. Starting today, not someday, today. Choose one conversation to be fully present in. Not every conversation. One. Pick someone who matters to you, a colleague, a friend, someone on your team, someone at home. And when they speak, do nothing else. Put the phone face down, better yet, out of the room. Let their words land before you respond. Ask the question underneath the question. Let the silence sit. Notice what happens. Notice what they tell you that they've never told you before. Notice the shift in the room when someone realizes they are truly being heard. Notice how you feel, because full presence is not just a gift you give. It changes you too. It slows you down in the best possible way. It reminds you that the person in front of you is not an obstacle, not a task, not a problem to be managed. They are a person with weight, with history, with something they need to say. Your job, the job you don't need a title to do, is to be the kind of person they can say it to. Do that consistently and watch what happens to your influence. People will seek you out, not because you have power over them, because you have given them something most people never give: the experience of mattering. And in a world that makes people feel invisible every single day, that is a kind of leadership that cannot be appointed, cannot be taken away, and cannot be faked. It can only be practiced.
Starting now.
Chapter 3. Character is your credibility. Somewhere along the way, someone taught you to color inside the lines. Stay in your lane. Do your part. Don't overstep. Know your role. These were reasonable instructions for a child learning to share a classroom. But somewhere between childhood and adulthood, something went wrong. The instructions became a philosophy. The boundaries became an identity. And millions of capable, intelligent people decided, quietly, without fanfare, to build their entire professional lives inside a document called a job description. And they called it fair. This chapter is going to challenge that, not to make you uncomfortable for the sake of it, but because that philosophy, however reasonable it sounds, is quietly costing you everything you say you want. The job description trap. Here is what a job description actually is. It is a floor, a minimum, a baseline agreement between you and an organization that says, if you do at least this, we will pay you at least that. It was never meant to be a ceiling. But watch how people treat it. Watch how quickly "that's not in my job description" becomes a full sentence, a complete thought, a closed door. As if the boundary between what you were hired to do and what the situation actually needs is a wall you have no right and no reason to cross. Let me ask you something honest. The person you most admire in your life, the one you think of when someone says the word leader, did they become who they are by doing exactly what was required of them and nothing more? Of course not. They became who they are because at some point, in some moment, they saw something that needed doing, and they did it. Not because it was in their contract. Not because someone was watching. Not because there was a reward waiting on the other side. Because it needed doing. And they were there. That decision, made quietly, without applause, was the beginning of everything. What you do when no one is watching. Character is not what you do on the days when you're being evaluated. Anyone can perform when the stakes are visible. Anyone can be generous when generosity is being measured. Anyone can go the extra mile when there's a promotion on the line or a review coming up or a manager standing nearby. Character is what you do on the ordinary Tuesday when no one is paying attention, when the meeting is over and everyone has left, and there's still a problem on the table that technically isn't yours. When a colleague is struggling with something outside your department. When you notice something going wrong and the easiest thing, the safest thing, is to let it be someone else's problem. What do you do then? Because here is what most people don't understand. Other people are always watching. Not in a surveillance way. Not consciously. But the human brain is wired to observe pattern. And the people around you, your colleagues, your team, your manager, even the people below you in the hierarchy, they are quietly building a model of who you are, based not on your words, but on your repeated choices. Every time you step up when you didn't have to, that model updates. Every time you walk past a problem that isn't technically yours, that model updates too. You don't get to choose whether people are forming an opinion of you. You only get to choose what opinion they form. The fairness illusion. Now let's talk about fairness, because this is where it gets personal. There is a version of fairness that sounds reasonable on the surface. It goes like this. I was hired to do a specific job. I do that job well. Asking me to do more than that job without additional compensation or recognition is unfair. It exploits my goodwill. It benefits the organization at my expense. I understand this argument. In certain contexts, in workplaces that are genuinely exploitative, where effort is consistently taken for granted and people are ground down without acknowledgement, there is truth in it. But that is not what most people mean when they say it. Most people mean something else entirely. They mean, I have found the exact minimum I can do to remain employed, and I intend to stay there. Anything beyond that line feels threatening to me, so I have wrapped my comfort in the language of justice. That is not fairness. That is fear dressed in principle. And the cruelest part? The people who live by that philosophy are not protecting themselves. They are imprisoning themselves. They are building a life-sized box out of job descriptions and policy documents, and that's not my problem. And then wondering, years later, why they feel stuck, why they've been passed over, why the people who got ahead somehow always seem to be doing more, going further, caring about things that weren't strictly their responsibility. Here's why. Because credibility, real credibility, the kind that opens doors and earns trust and creates opportunity, is never built inside the lines. It is always built beyond them. The thread that holds everything together. Think about the people in your life you trust completely. Not the people you trust to do their job, not the people you trust to show up between 9 and 5 and deliver what they promised. I mean the people you trust with something important, a difficult project, a hard conversation, a moment when something really matters. How did they earn that trust? Not in a single grand gesture. Trust doesn't work that way. Trust is built the same way a rope is built, fiber by fiber, strand by strand, each small thread wound around the others until the whole thing can hold enormous weight. And every fiber in that rope is a moment where someone did more than was required of them. The promise they kept when it was inconvenient. The problem they solved that wasn't technically theirs. The time they told you an uncomfortable truth when a comfortable lie was available. The moment they stood up for something when staying quiet would have been easier. None of those moments had a job description. None of them were in anyone's contract. But they are the entire foundation of every meaningful professional relationship you will ever have. Character is the accumulation of those moments. And credibility, the kind that cannot be faked, cannot be bought, and cannot be taken from you, is what character builds, slowly and quietly, over time. The person you are becoming. Here is the question I want you to sit with. Not what is in my job description, not what am I being paid to do, but this. Who am I becoming through the choices I make every day? Because your choices are not neutral. Every time you step up, you become slightly more the kind of person who steps up. Every time you walk away from a problem that isn't technically yours, you become slightly more the kind of person who walks away. Every time you do the minimum, you become slightly more a minimum kind of person. This is not judgment. This is just how human beings work. We become what we repeatedly do. And the terrifying, liberating truth is this. You are building your character right now. Not someday. Not in the big dramatic moments you imagine when you think about who you want to be. Right now. In the ordinary moments. In the small decisions that feel too insignificant to matter. They are the only moments that exist. And they are adding up, in one direction or the other, every single day. A different kind of ambition. I want to be honest with you about something. Going beyond what's required is not always comfortable. It will not always be appreciated in the moment. There will be times when you give more than you receive, when you step up and no one notices, when you carry more than your share and someone else gets the credit. Those moments are real, and they sting. But here is what I have seen again and again in people who choose to live this way. They do not become resentful. They become remarkable. Not because they got everything they deserved. None of us do. Not always. But because the practice of showing up fully, of caring about the work beyond the transaction, of being the kind of person who can be counted on, that practice changes you from the inside. It makes you someone you respect. And that, more than any title, any salary, any corner office, is the thing that is genuinely hard to take away. The job description defines the minimum. Your character defines the ceiling. Which one are you building toward? The practice. This week, find one moment, just one, where you do something that nobody asked you to do. Not something massive, not a sacrifice, just something small that needed doing, that you were capable of doing, that you walked past before. Don't announce it. Don't wait for acknowledgement. Just do it. And notice how it feels. Notice the quiet satisfaction of being someone who sees a need and fills it. Notice that it costs less than you feared. Notice that the version of you who did it is someone you like a little more than the version who didn't. That feeling is not nothing. That feeling is the beginning of the kind of character that, built consistently over years, becomes something people call extraordinary. It starts with one unremarkable moment on an ordinary day.
It starts now.
Chapter 4. The courage to own it. There are 6 words that will change how every person in any room sees you. 6 words that cost nothing, require no title, no authority, no special skill. 6 words that most people, intelligent, capable, well-meaning people, almost never say. I'll take care of it. Not, I'll try. Not, let me check if that falls under my responsibilities. Not, someone should really look into that. Not the slow nod that means yes in the room and nothing the moment you walk out the door. I'll take care of it. Said clearly. Said completely. With no asterisk, no conditions, no escape hatch. That sentence, and more importantly, the person who means it, is the rarest thing in almost any organization on earth. And it is available to you right now, regardless of where you sit. The room full of watchers. Picture a meeting. Something has gone wrong, a project off track, a client unhappy, a deadline missed, a gap nobody planned for. The problem is real. It is sitting in the middle of the room like something no one wants to touch. Watch what happens. Eyes move to the most senior person present. The most senior person looks at their notes, or at the ceiling, or at the problem itself with the expression of someone who has seen this before and is very tired. Then the conversation begins, careful, hedging, full of passive constructions. This will need to be addressed. Someone will have to follow up. We should probably look at this. Should. Will need to. Probably. Notice the grammar. Notice how nobody is in those sentences. The problem floats in the room, verbless and unowned, while everyone nods and moves to the next agenda item. And then the meeting ends. And the problem is still there, still unowned, still quietly growing. Now picture the same room, the same problem, the same tension. But this time, someone, perhaps the most junior person present, leans forward and says, I'll take care of it. Give me until Thursday. The room shifts. You can feel it. Something that was stuck becomes unstuck. The energy changes. People breathe differently. And almost without meaning to, everyone in that room has registered something about that person. They are someone who moves things forward. That reputation, built in a single moment, is worth more than years of quietly competent work. Why ownership is so rare. If taking ownership is so powerful, why don't more people do it? Because ownership is terrifying. When you say, "I'll take care of it," you are making a promise in public. You are attaching your name to an outcome. You are choosing to be the person responsible if things go wrong. And things, sometimes, go wrong. You are stepping out from behind the safety of shared responsibility and standing somewhere exposed. That exposure is real. And most people, most of the time, choose not to feel it. Instead, they perfect the art of looking engaged without being accountable. They contribute ideas without owning outcomes. They participate in decisions without being responsible for results. They become, over years of practice, very skilled at being present in a room while being absent from the consequences. This is not laziness. I want to be clear about that. Most of the people who do this are working hard. They care about their work. They are not intentionally avoiding responsibility. They are afraid that if they own it and it fails, the failure will define them. Afraid that they'll say, "I'll handle it," and discover they can't. Afraid that visibility brings vulnerability, that the moment you raise your hand, you become a target. And here is what I want you to hear directly. That fear is not wrong. It is just incomplete. Yes, ownership brings risk. Yes, when you take responsibility for something and it goes sideways, your name is on it. Yes, there is a version of this that ends in failure and embarrassment, and the private agony of having tried publicly and fallen short. But consider the alternative: a life spent in the background, a career built on competence without courage, years of having the ability without ever finding out what you were actually capable of. The quiet, creeping regret of someone who always watched from the edge of the room, waiting for the perfect moment to step in. A moment that never quite felt safe enough, guaranteed enough, certain enough. That regret is heavier than any failure. Take the risk. Responding versus reacting. There is a distinction that changes everything, and most people never learn it. When something goes wrong, a mistake is made, a situation deteriorates, a result falls short. There are two ways to meet it. The first is to react. Reaction is immediate, reflexive, emotional. It looks for someone to blame. It calculates how to minimize its own exposure. It generates explanations, defenses, reasons why this wasn't your fault, why the situation was unfair, why someone else should have caught this sooner. Reaction is fast, and it feels productive in the moment, and it accomplishes almost nothing. The second is to respond. Response is slower. It absorbs what happened without flinching. It asks not, "Whose fault is this?" but, "What do we do now?" Response moves toward the problem instead of away from it. It looks for solutions before it looks for someone to blame. Here is the painful truth. Reaction is instinct. Response is a choice. And it is one of the hardest choices a human being can make, because it requires you to suppress something very natural: the need to protect yourself, in service of something more important: actually solving the problem. The leaders without titles who change rooms, teams, and organizations are almost always the ones who have learned to respond rather than react. Who, in the middle of chaos, can pause, even for one breath, and ask the question that matters: what does this situation need from me right now? Not, what is safe for me? Not, how do I come out of this looking good? Not, whose job is this? What does this situation need? Answer that question honestly. Act on the answer. Do it consistently. And watch what happens to how people see you. Ownership without authority. Now here is where it gets difficult. Because ownership without authority means that sometimes you will take responsibility for outcomes you don't fully control. You will carry something across the finish line using influence, persuasion, and sheer will, because you have no formal power to make people move. You will own results that depend on other people doing their part. And when those people don't come through, you will still be the one who said, "I'll take care of it." This is the reality of leading without a title. And it is genuinely hard. But here is what the people who do it well understand. Authority is overrated. Real authority, the kind that makes people actually move, actually change, actually give their best, has never come from a title. It comes from trust. And trust comes from a track record. And a track record is built one owned moment at a time. When you say, "I'll take care of it," and you take care of it, people notice. When you do it again, they notice again. When you do it in the hard situations, the complicated ones, the ones where failure was genuinely possible and you came through anyway, something shifts permanently in how they see you. You stop being a colleague. You become someone they count on. That is not a small thing. That is the foundation of every form of real influence that has ever existed. You didn't need authority to build it. You needed consistency. The weight of the words. I want to come back to those 6 words because they deserve more than a moment. I'll take care of it. When you say them and mean them, something happens inside you too. Something straightens. There is a particular kind of clarity that comes from choosing to be responsible, a settling, a sharpening. Suddenly the fog of someone should and they need to, and eventually this will get sorted, burns away, and you are left with the clean simplicity of a person and a problem and a promise. It is uncomfortable. It is also, if you have never felt it, one of the most alive feelings available to a human being at work. Because purpose feels like this. Not the big, abstract, 5-year plan version of purpose, the immediate, concrete, right now version. The feeling of being the person who is needed, who is capable, who stepped forward when stepping back was easier. That feeling does not come from your title. It comes from your choice. What you owe yourself. Here is the thing I most want you to take from this chapter. You have been waiting for someone to give you permission to be fully yourself at work, to use everything you have, to care as much as you actually care, to try as hard as you are actually capable of trying, to take ownership of things the way you know somewhere inside you that you could. No one is going to give you that permission, not your manager, not your organization, not a promotion, not a title change, not a performance review that finally says what you've been hoping to hear. The permission is yours to take. It always has been. And the cost of not taking it, the cost of another year, another role, another organization spent performing just enough and holding the rest of yourself back, is not just professional. It is personal. It is the slow erosion of the belief that you are capable of more. It is the quiet accumulation of unlived potential, sitting in you like something unfinished. You deserve better than that. The people around you deserve better than that. And the world, which has more problems than it has people willing to own them, desperately needs people like you to stop waiting and start saying the words. I'll take care of it. Say them today. Mean them. Follow through. And then say them again tomorrow. The practice. Today, find one thing that is going wrong. On your team, in your organization, in your family, in your community, that you have been treating as someone else's problem. You already know what it is. You've walked past it before. Don't wait to be asked. Don't wait until it's officially yours. Don't wait until you're sure you can solve it perfectly. Walk toward it. Say the words. Begin. Not because you have to.
Because you are the kind of person who does.
Chapter 5. Grow the people around you. There is a kind of person you have almost certainly encountered. They are talented, capable, often the smartest person in the room, and they know it. They work hard, they produce results, and they guard both with quiet ferocity. They are careful about who gets credit, careful about who gets access to what they know, careful about who rises around them because somewhere in the back of their mind, a place they would never admit to out loud, they believe that someone else's success is a threat to their own. You know the type. Maybe you've worked for one. Maybe you've worked beside one. And here is what always happens to them. They plateau. Not immediately. For a while, their talent carries them. The results speak, the promotions come. And then slowly, almost invisibly, they stop rising. The people around them stop giving their best. The room goes quiet when they enter, in the wrong kind of way. They find themselves doing more and more alone because they have spent years making it clear, without ever saying so directly, that they are not safe to grow around. And they cannot figure out why. The answer is this: you cannot hold people down and rise at the same time. It has never worked. It will never work. And the people who figure this out, who discover the strange, counterintuitive, almost paradoxical truth at the heart of this chapter, are the ones who end up leading the rooms they used to just sit in. The scarcity trap. Most people operate from a hidden assumption about success. It goes like this: there is only so much of it. A fixed amount of recognition, opportunity, advancement. A pie that does not grow, only gets divided. Which means that when someone else gets a slice, it comes from yours. This is the scarcity mindset. And it is one of the most destructive forces in any team, any organization, any relationship. Because when you believe success is a finite resource, other people's growth feels like your loss. You become protective of your ideas, your knowledge, your connections. You share credit reluctantly, if at all. You watch a colleague struggle with something you could help them with, and you let them struggle. Not out of cruelty, but out of the quiet, barely conscious calculation that their difficulty keeps the gap between you intact. You stop being a teammate, you become a competitor, and you start competing with the very people who could be your greatest allies. Here is the truth that breaks the scarcity trap open. In almost every environment that matters, in teams, in organizations, in communities, your success is not diminished by the people around you getting better. It is multiplied by it. When the people around you grow, the work gets better. When the work gets better, better things become possible. When better things become possible, you are standing in a room of expanded opportunity, not a smaller piece of the same pie, but a larger table altogether. The people who understand this don't just share credit. They actively invest in others' growth. They teach what they know. They open doors they don't have to open. They point spotlights at people who aren't in them yet. And in doing so, they become indispensable, not because they hoarded what they had, but because they multiplied it. What it means to invest in someone. Let me be specific. Because invest in people sounds like the kind of thing you put on a values poster and then promptly forget about on a Monday morning. Investing in someone is not a program. It is not a mentorship scheme with a quarterly check-in. It is not the performance review where you tell someone their development areas and send them to a training course. It is a decision, made in small moments, to care about where another person is going. It looks like this. It looks like noticing that someone on your team has a skill they aren't using and creating a moment for them to use it. It looks like introducing someone to a contact who could open a door for them without needing anything in return. It looks like giving honest, caring feedback when someone is about to make a mistake, not to prove you're smarter, but because you actually want them to succeed. It looks like saying, "Great idea," in a meeting and meaning it, even when the idea came from someone junior to you, someone who might one day be competing for the same opportunities you are. It looks like sharing what you know. This one deserves its own moment. Because there is a particular kind of insecurity, common, deeply human, almost never spoken aloud, that makes people hoard knowledge. The reasoning sounds like protection. If I teach you what I know, I become replaceable. If you have my skills, I lose my edge. But consider what this logic actually produces. It produces a world where every person is an island, where knowledge dies with the person who holds it instead of spreading, where teams underperform because the one person who knows how something works is the bottleneck for everything, where organizations are dependent on individuals who have made themselves necessary by refusing to make anyone else capable. Is that the person you want to be? Or do you want to be the person that every talented individual seeks out because being around you makes them better? There is only one of those people that gets remembered. And it is not the one who hoarded the credit you give away. Let's talk about something most people find genuinely difficult. Giving away credit. Not the performative kind. Of course, it was a team effort delivered in an acceptance speech while privately believing it was mostly you. I mean the real kind. The kind where someone else's name goes on something they helped build, even when your contribution was larger. The kind where you tell your manager, "This was Sarah's idea," instead of letting the assumption stand that it was yours. The kind where you push someone else forward into the spotlight and stay, willingly, off to the side. This goes against something very primal. We want to be seen. We want our work recognized. We want the people with power and influence to know what we are capable of. And giving credit away feels, in the moment, like giving that recognition away with it. But here is what actually happens when you do it consistently. People notice. Not just the person you gave the credit to, although they notice most of all. And they will never forget it. The room notices. The manager notices. And what they see is not someone who is diminishing themselves. They see someone who is secure enough in their own value that they don't need to claim every victory. Someone who cares more about the outcome than the acknowledgement. Someone who builds people up rather than positioning themselves above them. That person, the one who gives credit away freely, almost always ends up with more of it. Not because they engineered it, but because generosity of that kind is so rare that it becomes its own form of recognition. Abundance attracts abundance. And the person who treats success as something to be shared always ends up with more to share. The mentor. You didn't wait to be asked to be. Think about the person who made the biggest difference in your professional life, the one who saw something in you before you saw it in yourself, who pushed you toward things you didn't feel ready for, who told you the truth when everyone else was telling you what you wanted to hear, who believed in your potential so clearly, so consistently, that eventually you couldn't help but believe in it yourself. What would your life look like without that person? Now ask yourself, who are you doing that for? Not who has officially assigned you as their mentor. Not who has asked for your guidance in a formal way. But who, right now, in your orbit, is earlier in their journey than you, and could use someone to believe in them? Because here is the thing about mentoring that most people misunderstand. You don't need credentials for it. You don't need to be the most experienced person in the room, or the most senior, or the most successful. You just need to be a little further along the path than someone else, and willing to look back and reach out a hand. That is it. That is all it takes. And the effect it has on them and quietly, invisibly on you is enormous. Because there is something that happens when you invest genuinely in another person's growth. You become accountable to your own. It is very hard to tell someone to be brave and then be a coward yourself. It is very hard to encourage someone to go further and then stay exactly where you are. The people you invest in will call you forward, whether they mean to or not. Invest in them. The ripple. You cannot see. Here is what I want you to hold on to as you leave this chapter. Every person you genuinely help grow. Every door you open, every piece of honest feedback you give, every moment of credit you share, every conversation where you choose to lift someone up instead of compete with them, sends a ripple into the world that you will almost never fully see. The person you mentored will one day mentor someone else, using things you taught them. The idea you helped someone develop will grow into something neither of you could have imagined alone. The door you opened for someone will lead to a room they will one day open for others. You will not be there for most of it. You will never know most of it happened, but it will have happened because of you. That is a kind of legacy that no title can create and no organization can grant. It grows in the quiet spaces between people, in the moments of genuine investment, genuine generosity, genuine belief in someone else's potential. It is, perhaps, the most enduring thing a human being can build. And it begins not with a grand gesture, but with a simple decision made today. I will make the people around me better, not because I have to, because that is the kind of person I have chosen to be. The practice. Look around you this week. Find one person who is trying to grow, struggling with something, reaching for something earlier in their journey than you in some meaningful way, and do one concrete thing to help them move forward. Share a piece of knowledge, make an introduction, tell them what you genuinely see in them, give them credit for something, out loud, in front of people who matter. Don't wait to be asked. Don't wait until it's your job. Don't calculate what you get in return. Just give. And notice, quietly, privately, how it feels to be the kind of person who does that. That feeling is not separate from your success.
It is the deepest part of it.
Chapter 6. The Daily Practice. You have made it to the end of this book, but I want to be honest with you about something right here at the close. Reading or listening is the easy part. You have spent this time with ideas about presence, about character, about ownership, about growing others. And some of those ideas have landed in you. You felt it, the small internal shift when something true finds a place to rest. The moment of recognition when a sentence reflected something you already knew but had never quite heard, said out loud. That feeling is real. Don't dismiss it. But it is not change. Not yet. Change is what happens on the Tuesday morning 3 weeks from now when you're tired, when the meeting is going in circles, when someone says something that triggers every reactive instinct you have. And in that moment, in that ordinary, unglamorous moment, you make a different choice than you would have made before. That is where this book either meant something or it didn't. Not here, not in the listening. There. The gap between knowing and being. There is a gap that lives in almost every person who has ever read a great book, attended a powerful seminar, or heard something that genuinely moved them. It is the gap between knowing and being. Knowing is easy. Knowing is comfortable. Knowing lets you nod along, feel the warmth of insight, and return to exactly the life you were living before. Knowing costs nothing and changes nothing. The world is full of people who know exactly what they should do and live nothing like it. Being is different. Being is what happens when knowledge moves out of your head and into your hands. When the principle becomes a practice. When the insight becomes a habit. When what you understand starts to shape what you actually do. Not on the days you remember to be intentional, but on the ordinary days, the tired days, the days when no one would blame you for taking the easy road. The distance between those two things, knowing and being, is where most personal growth goes to die. And it dies not because people are weak, not because they don't care, but because they underestimate how much repetition it takes to rewire a human being. They expect transformation to feel like transformation. Dramatic, visible, permanent. Instead, it feels like Tuesday, like a small choice that doesn't seem to matter much. like one conversation handled slightly better than it would have been before. That is what transformation actually feels like from the inside. Unremarkable, repeated, real. The 5 commitments. Let me bring everything together. Not as a checklist. Checklists get forgotten. But as 5 commitments. 5 ways of moving through your days that, practiced consistently, will make you someone unrecognizable to the person you are right now. Not in 5 years, in 5 months, if you mean it. The first commitment? Show up fully. Every room you enter today, enter it completely. Not half of you while the other half is somewhere else. The whole thing, your attention, your presence, your willingness to be actually affected by the people in front of you. Put the phone down. Look people in the eye. Let their words reach you. Be the rarest thing in modern life. Someone who is genuinely, entirely here. Do this in one conversation today, then tomorrow, then the day after, until it becomes who you are. The second commitment. Do the thing that is yours to do. Every day, in every environment you move through, there is something that needs doing that no one has assigned to you. A problem floating without an owner. A gap that everyone is stepping around. A moment that is calling for someone to step into it. That someone is you. Not because you have to, because you are the kind of person who does. Find it today. Don't wait to be asked. Don't calculate whether it's fair. Just do it. And notice what that does to how you see yourself by the end of the day. The third commitment, guard your character in the dark. The moments that define you are not the ones people see. They are the ones they don't. The choice you make when no one is watching. The promise you keep when breaking it would be easy and invisible. The truth you tell when a comfortable silence was available. Decide today, not someday, today, who you are going to be in those moments. Because those moments are coming. They come every day. And they are building you, fiber by fiber, into either the person you want to be or the person you're afraid of becoming. Choose deliberately. The fourth commitment. Say it out loud. The idea you've been holding back. The feedback someone needs to hear. The recognition a colleague deserves. The "I'll take care of it" that a situation is waiting for. Say it. Out loud. Today. Not when you're ready. You will never feel fully ready. Not when it's safe. It will never be completely safe. Now. With the voice you have, from the place you're standing. With the imperfect, unfinished, still becoming version of yourself that is the only version that exists. That version is enough. It has always been enough. The fifth commitment. Invest in someone. Find one person today, just one, who is earlier in their journey than you in some meaningful way. And do one thing, one real thing, to help them move forward. Share what you know. Open a door. Tell them what you genuinely see in them. Not because it helps you, because it is the right thing to do with whatever light you have been given, to hold it up so others can see further. That is what the best leaders have always done. That is what you are going to do. The person in the mirror. I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually answer it. Not quickly, not defensively, but honestly, in the quiet part of yourself where you know the truth about who you are and who you've been settling for being. Who is the person you most want to become? Not the title, not the salary, not the external markers of success that we have been taught to chase since we were children. I mean, the actual person, the way they move through a room, the way people feel after a conversation with them, the kind of presence they carry, the way they respond when things are hard, the way they treat the people who can do nothing for them. That person. How far are you right now from that person? Not as a judgment, as a measurement. as an honest reckoning with the gap between the person you are today and the person you are capable of becoming. Because here is what I know, having spent this book in your company. That person you are imagining, they are not a fantasy. They are not some idealized version of you that exists only in daydreams. They are the direction, the North Star, the person that every small choice you make today is either moving you toward or moving you away from. And the distance between here and there is not as far as it feels. It is made of ordinary days, ordinary moments, ordinary choices made slightly differently than before. You have been making those choices your whole life. You will keep making them whether you think about it or not. The only question is whether you make them consciously, whether you pick up the thread of who you are becoming and pull it deliberately in the direction of who you want to be. A letter to the you who doubts. Because there is a part of you, I know there is, that is already preparing its objections. This sounds good in theory, but you don't know my situation. My organization doesn't work like this. My manager doesn't see it this way. I've tried to go above and beyond before, and it wasn't appreciated. I've been burned by caring too much. I've learned to protect myself. I've learned that the world doesn't always reward the things this book says to do. I hear you. And you are right. The world does not always reward these things immediately. You will step up, and sometimes no one will notice. You will give credit, and sometimes the person you gave it to will forget you did. You will invest in someone, and they will disappoint you. You will own something, and it will fail, publicly, with your name on it. This is not a book of guarantees. Life does not come with guarantees. But here is what I can promise you. The person who lives these principles, not perfectly, not without failure, but consistently and genuinely, that person does not end up small. They do not end up invisible. They do not end up wondering at the end of their life whether any of it mattered. Because the measure of a life is not what was given to you. It is what you gave, not what was recognized, but what was real. Not who applauded, but who was changed by knowing you, by working beside you, by being in the same room as you when something needed doing, and you were the one who did it. You cannot control the outcome. You never could. You can only control the kind of person you choose to be while you're here. Choose well. The beginning. We have come to the end of this book, but I want you to notice something. Every chapter ended the same way. Not with a summary, not with a recap, with a practice, something small, something you could do today, in the life you already have, with the people already around you. That was intentional. Because leadership without a title does not begin when circumstances change. It does not begin when you get the promotion, or join the right organization, or finally find yourself in a room that deserves your best. It begins in the room you are already in. It begins with the person sitting across from you right now, or the one you'll see in an hour. It begins in the meeting you've been dreading, the conversation you've been avoiding, the problem you've been walking past. It begins not with a grand declaration, but with a quiet decision. A decision to be present, to own something, to build your character in the dark, to grow the people around you, to do more than is required, and expect nothing in return. A decision to lead. Not because someone gave you the title, because you gave yourself the standard. That is who you are becoming. That is who you already are on your best days. The days when you forgot to be afraid and just showed up fully as yourself. This book is an invitation to make those days every day. Go do it. The world is waiting for you.
Thank you for listening. If this book moved something in you, share it with one person who needs to hear it. The ripple you start today is one you may never fully see, but it will reach further than you know.